Drivers, start your engines.
You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr. and I'm welcoming you to take another lap of the extra mile for today, April 16th, 2020. And we are starting to come down this roller coaster, but it's going to be a long time before we get back to normal. As the COVID red flag continues, and to help me make sense of all of this are two of my good friends, Caitlin Seam and Michael Ward, as my co-host this evening.
Hello, everyone.
Hola.
Hope everyone's week is going well. Hope everyone out there, your week is going well as well. Should have chosen a better word for that, but here we are. It has been a interesting week in the racing world as we start today's show. iRacing, last couple of weeks, has been in the news for some controversies. There was the Blue Emu incident with Bubba Wallace and losing his, I guess, a real-world sponsorship because he rage quit in iRace, which started a conversation.
Which seems so petty now with everything else that's happened.
And we thought that was going to be the biggest iRacing-related mess to happen before we get back going green and actually racing for real. And then Easter Sunday came, and Kyle Larson was an idiot. At this point, we know what he said. We've seen the backlash was swift, brutal, and complete. Within 2 days, he was out of a job. And we're going to have a conversation about Larson and that word and race relations in motorsports at 8:40 when Bill Lester joins the program. That's actually someone I've actually been looking at trying to talk to for a while. Unfortunately, it comes with what has happened this week. And before we get going into our second little news update, I just want to get a check with Caitlin and Michael. Where were you guys when you first heard about what happened, and what was your immediate reaction?
Well, Darryl, I was at home following our shelter in place like a good citizen. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Yeah, I was at home. And here's the thing that I appreciate the most is as soon as I found out, like, I was like rage texting way too many people on my phone. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I was stunned at first, and then I was just really pissed off because it is the one no-go word in the world. Don't say it. You just don't. Like, period, end statement. Like, there's no ifs, ands, there's no asterisk, there's nothing there attached to it. You just don't say it. And then I, realized, I think the part that infuriated me the most, too, was how, when you realize how casual it was said, that you're like, oh, yeah, this is not a first-time use of this word. And I think the thing that I appreciated the most in this whole grand scheme of things is I appreciated how quickly it got shut down. Yeah. Like, I really did. I was talking to my boyfriend about it, and, like, the comparison really came down to was almost like the reaction, especially on the sponsorship side, that happened when Tiger Woods and his whole debacle happened. And, like, it was a very immediate, it was a very quick thing that happened. It got shut down. It was over. Like, this is a no-go zone. We're done. And I think I almost didn't even have time to form all of my reactions in this before the backlash started happening on Larson. And I don't feel like justice is ever served quite as nicely as we want it to be. And Larson very quickly got his just desserts.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the reasons I stayed relatively quiet about it on like social media and stuff, because everything was really speaking for itself. He said it, and it wasn't a oh well it slipped, or an oh well this, or where that was definitely the fan side, but on like the part that matters, the sponsorship was like nope. NASCAR was like nope. iRacing was like nope. Chevrolet was like, you're never racing for us again. And then even after a little hesitancy, then Ganassi even fell into place too. And at that point, I'm like, that spoke for itself. And I was so glad for once in this lifetime that NASCAR did the right thing when it needed to be done. Because if they would have at all let this slide, this conversation would be me saying goodbye to NASCAR, because I would not have anything to do with it ever again.
This would probably be, and to piggyback off that, this would have probably been the last episode of the Extra Mile. Not even playing. If NASCAR...
Yeah, it would have been...
If they did not move to deal with this as quickly as they did, I would have picked up sticks and left. Or it wouldn't have been the last episode of this show, but it'd be the last time we ever talk about NASCAR on this program. It'd be Formula One and IndyCar all the time here once that happened. But to everyone's credit, they worked quickly to do what they had to do. Michael, did you see any of the social media backlash on your end?
Kind of saw it live, to be honest with you. I tuned in to check up on the race just to see how everything was going. It looked pretty fun. But I didn't really know he said that, Darryl, and I'm not going to lie. I didn't know he said that until you told me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went and looked at the clip, and thank God for Twitch streamers for catching this, because he can't really... I know you're not supposed to say that word, but they exposed a side that that shouldn't be overlooked mentally, because NASCAR, from what I'm, hearing, is that they're trying to get rid of that whole stereotype, and they want to move further into diversity, which I completely like. I do like that they're embracing that. And I'm just glad that somebody caught him in the act. I did like Carl Larson before this happened. After this happened, maybe not so much, but if people are going to have this mindset, it's the perfect type of punishment. He lost his ride, sponsors, and everything. So it's their way of saying, hey, we're not going to accept this type of behavior in our sport anymore.
And Larry B comes on the chat saying, correction, the entire station would have been done with NASCAR. And it makes sense. I mean, I know I got a lot of new followers over the last couple of days after that video I posted, basically saying how I felt about that word. And if you're just catching you up, Kyle Larson said the N-word with the hard R. And there's a difference between those two. Personally, there isn't, but for a lot of people, there's a lot of difference between the A and the ER, especially the hard R at the end. So he went all the way left.
Especially when you are not there. Yeah, he is
not
Japanese
me.
and he is white. There is no qualifying anything for anything there.
Yeah. And there's two black guys and a Caucasian woman that does this show every week. We would have been done with this sport after this, unfortunately, because that would have been the final straw. But thankfully, everyone dealt with it, and it's unfortunate that we still find ourselves here. And I don't even care why he keyed up on the local chat. That was God that made him accidentally key up on the all chat. Because eventually stuff you do in the darkness is going to come to light. And the way that word slipped out his mouth, he's done this
like
before.
He was saying it all the time.
It's like he was saying, hey...
especially with how he said it.
Yeah, it's like he was saying, salutations, friend. So he's been doing this a lot.
Yeah.
And he's going to need some time.
And nobody is deemed to correct him.
Yeah. Well, and Turin, thank you for that. That video was well received. That was really done. And about that video that was on my YouTube or my Twitter, where I basically said who should be using that word. Spoiler alert, no one. That was about the third time I tried to record that, because the first 2 times were not very pretty, because I was so angry about the situation. Thankfully, I calmed down. Third time I got that out, but I just do not like that word. I was raised in a house not to like that word. I slipped up as a teenager, said it in this house one time. That was the last time. We will go that far.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I can just imagine how bruised your butt would have been.
Well, it wasn't physical, but we had a long, loud conversation about why you shouldn't use that word. And I learned from there, that's not something you say. And apparently he didn't have that training. He's going to have to go get that training. Unfortunately, now he has to go get it in a time where his job is on the line. And all I can say to Kyle is, sucks to be you, buddy. You need to get that fixed pronto. So we are...
And here's the other thing about it. Do we have time? There's only one other thing
we
I
got
want to
time.
add really quick. Is not only do you need to get it fixed, but you have to mean it. I have not... Like, I hated him more when he dropped his quote-unquote apology video than I did at him saying the word. Because it was the most insincere, PR-written piece of shit apology that I've ever heard in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It made me angrier. Like, I was just done with him after everything when he dropped it. And then he does this stupid little video that you can tell that he's not actually sorry at all. And I was just like, I will happily burn you at the stake for this. I don't even care anymore. Like, it was just a no.
And Turin in the chat says, there's no place in the world for using that word. Larson should have known better. In the words of John Gruden, shame on him, shame on him. Larson got what was coming to him. And we're going to have a deeper conversation about this at 8:40 p.m. where Bill Lester is going to join us on the program. And we're going to talk about race in racing. And he had some comments to Auto Week. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have Blake Reynolds on the line, Ty Dillon, esports driver. We're going to talk about how the race went in Richmond. We'll be right back here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
Wrestling fans in the podcast world, you are in the right place to listen to the right show, the premier show in the professional wrestling podcasting world. This is Ring Rambling Radio, and you are listening to one of the co-hosts. I am Martin Sandoval, a.k.a. the SoCal Saint, along with my two co-hosts, the lovely Felicia and my boy Matt. Yes, every Saturday or every other Saturday morning, you can listen to us, the premier wrestling team, giving you the premier wrestling news, rumors, updates, event discussions, everything that has to do with professional wrestling. You're in the right place. IE Sports Radio presents Ring Rambling Radio. Don't miss it, because it's just too sweet.
Yes, it is just too sweet, and you can hear that program and many others here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. You are listening to The Extra Mile. Darryl, Caitlin, and Michael are with you this evening, and our first guest is on the line. They had a wild race, the Coca-Cola iRacing Series did at Richmond, and this gentleman was able to get himself a top 10 finish out of that crazy race where 16 cautions fell. Ryan Luza was your winner, and with a top 10 finish, finishing 7th in that race for Team Dillon Esports. On the line with us right now, driver of the Coca-Cola number 3 Coca-Cola Camaro in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. It's Blake Reynolds. Blake, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. This is something pretty new to me, so just looking forward to give the best information and just letting people know what I do.
So, Blake, let's start with Tuesday. We were talking a little bit about it before we came on to the show. 16 cautions at the virtual Richmond Raceway, and you said there were some special circumstances that led to how wild that race ended up being, and a majority of the last 50 laps were run under yellow. Take us into the driver's seat. What was going on in that race?
So yeah, it was just some recent developments with iRacing. I've just especially the TV stuff, and Richmond they had a change of grip basically, and it just made it to where the bottom line was really dominant. And it's usually not like that, but because of that, the real estate on the bottom was limited, and it was very sought after. So on those restarts, everyone's just hugging each other, pinching. Just banging doors, trying to get to the bottom, and just doing anything they can to get that grip on the bottom. So that was kind of one of the reasons why those cautions were really happening. It's just because everyone was just really trying to get to the bottom and just doing anything they could to make that happen.
So when you get a race that has that many cautions, you start near the middle to the back of the pack. What do you have to do in the race as a driver to get through the field? Because in iRacing, a lot more of it is put on the driver than maybe what we see in TV. Because not everyone carries a crew chief with you. You almost have to be crew chief and driver in one almost.
Yeah. Well, I had my own set of people behind the scenes that do the other job, like crew chiefing, spotting. Basically, their job title is a kind of a running joke with us, is the button clicker. So it's kind of their title. My friend Alan Bose was my button clicker for Richmond, so he kind of made the calls, and a couple of them I kind of ignored on purpose, just because I felt like you said, I kind of make my own calls. So a couple of those times in the race, I kind of ignored him and made my own call, and it kind of worked out there to get me toward the front. Those run of cautions.
So
those are better than the "I told you so"s, though, right? At least you called in and it worked out.
Yeah.
So how do those conversations go when you see those buttons go clicked and you say, I'm going to ignore that for right now?
Well, usually I tell them what to click. Or, I'll say, my car is a little, I need more center turn. So we'll go up a click or two on the left for offset, raise the left side, get more air on that left side spoiler, get it to turn more. Stuff like that. Or 2 tires, gas, just the usual.
Okay. And I'm not the only racer here. Michael's actually an avid racer as well. Michael, you got some questions for Blake?
This isn't pertaining to the Richmond race, but I just wanted to know what was the climb to get further on up into those category of races?
Like my experience there, or just like what you have to do?
What you have to do, really.
Okay. So basically, it's a really long process, actually. So there's a series called the Road to Pro, which any A-class driver, if you're familiar with iRacing, that's the top echelon of the public. It's Class A, it's the blue stripe. So basically, you have to have a Class A, and then you get eligible for this thing called the Road to Pro, and it's the trucks. So in the trucks, you have to be the top 20 in overall iRacing points, and then you get elevated in the winter to an Xfinity series called the iRacing Pro Series. And then that's where you race the Xfinity cars, and the top 20 from that series goes up to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series.
Wow.
As a non-racer, I know none of this. That was very fascinating.
That's actually
interesting.
Go ahead.
It's actually not too far from real life if you think about it.
Oh, yeah, but there's a set amount of spots every year that you can lose or you can gain every year. It's not like in real life where there's 7 drivers retiring this year, so 7 really good rides are open up. So or like this year there was no drivers that retired and 1 ran out of money, so there's only 1 open spot. So there's a set amount every year that you get to go for.
And do you get to keep your spot, or do you have to race back to it every year?
You have to retain the top 20 in points to retain your spot.
So it's almost like a Premier League style kind of promotion relegation system where, although it's a much bigger safe zone where the top 20 are safe, but the bottom 20 are in the danger of dropping out, from what it sounds like.
Yeah, and those guys that are kind of always run in that 20 to 30, 30 to 40 range, they're always fighting. They're always the ones pulling the radical strategy call to try and get those points. So it's kind of crazy in races like that, especially those cautions. We had a couple of people like that stay out on like 70-lap tires, and it ended up working for a couple of them. But yeah, you always have to watch out for those guys. And then over the last couple of years, I've elevated myself from a 20 to 30th place driver to what I feel like is a 15th to 10th. And even last year, I had top 5 pace the entire year, it felt like.
Okay, and as we've seen over the last few weeks, with everything going on with COVID-19, the pandemic, there's been a whole lot more excitement around iRacing. I know you're on the service a lot. Have you seen a lot of new drivers popping up lately in races, or do you really just maintain, working on the NASCAR Coca-Cola Series stuff?
I don't race public too much. I'm 21. I have a full-time job now. And, school's not really a thing I can do right now just because, obviously, as you said, COVID-19. And then I work for our family business. So I'm doing that right now. And then, I get home at night and I put in a couple hours of testing for whatever track we have next for the Coke Series. So I have seen, though, an increase ever since that first Fox broadcast. Mm-hmm. You can see on the main iRacing homepage how many people are online. And usually on a popular night, it was around 5,000 to 7,000. And ever since then, it has been 15,000 plus every day.
Wow.
It has tripled active.
So a lot of people have been starting
insane.
I know iRacing did tweet out that after that first race, they had about 7,000 new subscribers, and that helps with the sustainability of the series. I know it's probably going to make some people in the rookie series a little bit more upset with all the new drivers. If I remember from past experience, you probably do as well from starting out in the Rookie Legends or whatever the rookie car is at this point. Actually, what is the rookie car now? Is it still the Legend?
It's actually the Street Stock, but the Legend is you can unlock the Legend after a certain amount of races. So you have to do the Street Stock first, and then I think it's like you have to run 4 races in Street Stock to unlock the Legend, and then it's those 2 for a little bit.
The funny thing is, back when I ran, which was 2009, so when the service was just getting off the ground, I think it was the Legend was actually first. So it's interesting to see that they've swapped those 2 cars around and made the Street Stock the rookie car, and the Legend you got to work for, which is probably for the best because some of those Rookie Legends races were, I don't want to remember them. But we'll continue on. Blake, how long have you been on the iRacing service as a driver?
I joined on, actually I can look at my account here. I believe it's March 15, 2013.
Okay.
Let me load the page here. March 12th. Close. So March 12th, 2013 is when I joined.
So you've been on since 7 years. You've seen a lot change in the service then. You came in before all the grip changes and the adaptive weather and now the new damage models. So how has the service changed from when you started until now?
I still consider myself a new guy. There's a lot of guys in the series that have been in there since 2008, 2007, however long. But, for me personally, I joined the service in the time where iRacing was finally developing as almost a complete game. Back in 2010 before, it was almost an unfinished game. It was the game was constantly in beta. So I joined in a time where I felt like it was a complete game. It had content of all sorts, all different levels. And then obviously in the last 2 or 3 years or so, like you said, the addition of the dynamic surface model, which I feel has, benefited my driving style a lot. I like to rip the top, or do like a really high entry and a cut low. Like I love that changing grip. And then the weather has also kind of benefited me just because I've always felt like I'm pretty adaptive. So if a cloud comes over the track and makes it 2/10 faster, I mean, yeah, I feel like I can take advantage of that. But yeah, changes like that are just awesome.
So we got questions. So a question in the chat. This is from Turin Rodriguez. What has been some of your memorable moments when it comes to eNASCAR, and what have you liked the most about running in the eNASCAR series?
Let's see, top moment. I'd have to go with last year's finale at Homestead, the first race on national television, really, and being able to be in the Final Four among 3 other fantastic drivers who ended up beating me that day, but I got 4th in the standings, or last of the Final Four. But that race at Homestead, all sorts of strategy, the different lines you can make work. It was just a ton of fun, and people can say what they want about that package with the reduced horsepower and the high downforce, but some of those 1.5 miles, at least in iRacing, it made for some awesome races, and that was one of them.
So you were in that televised race on NBCSN that Zach Novak ended up winning. When did you guys find out that race was going to be on NBCSN, and what was your immediate reaction to you're going to be on television and people are going to be tuning in all across the country to watch you guys race the sim?
Well, we did a couple races for NASCAR America in the summer, I think, July, August. We had an almost invitational site format race where it was just all of us that could make it at like 3 or 4 o'clock that day. And it was a good chunk of the field. I want to say 30 drivers, and then they just threw Parker Kligerman in there for NBC analyst. He ended up wrecking. He was the only driver that wrecked. But
Parker
we
used
ran
to
at Iowa, and it was a really good opportunity to showcase tracks that are not raced with Cup cars. So Iowa is an awesome track, and I wish Cup would race there because that is an awesome track in those cars with the high downforce of the Cup car. That in the Xfinity car and the trucks, which normally go there in real life, you don't get to see that too much. So that was fun. And then I think we did one at Rockingham. I wasn't able to go to that one. I had to work that day, but we found out around then that our finale was going to be on TV. And then that made me, because I ended up being in the playoffs, which was 8. It's 8 for our series. The final 4 races, we have 2 rounds. The first round is those 3 races, and then the second round is the final one. And in those 4 races, you race to be the top 4 in the playoffs. So I was in the top 8 for most of the season, and that was my incentive. I got sent a camera, and I had a live camera on me that they could cut to in the middle of the race, and that was just an incentive for me to try and get into that Final Four because I knew that race was going to be on TV.
We got another question from the chat, and this is actually where I was going to go next. How did you get connected with Team Dillon, and were there any big moments with that to say, wow, I'm really here?
Well, all these teams started showing up last year at the start. I actually went undrafted. So I had a terrible 2018, which meant that for the next season, my I forget what it's called. I guess my rankings that were given to the team by iRacing, they didn't look too good. But I did win the Winter Pro Series. Like I said earlier, I actually fell out of the top 20. I was 31st in points, so I had to run that Xfinity Series, and I won the championship an entire race in points. I could have not ran the final race and still won the championship. So I had Big Mo go into that race, or into that season rather. And then I went undrafted. I didn't join Team Dillon until round 5 at Texas. And I was a late pickup. And then after that, I literally did not finish outside the top 10 for the rest of the season.
Sound like getting picked up by Team Dillon was really a big boost to you.
Well, yeah. I mean, Austin Craven is the main guy behind Team Dillon management with Austin Dillon. And he pretty much had no idea what he was getting into. He just got a couple sponsors, threw him on the car, and then we ended up running so good. I guess just got a little bit more attention in there. So, and then that kind of helped for this next year, just because it allowed us to get bigger and bring somebody like Coke on board and be the 3 car. So. Yeah, just I didn't realize I was really here until that next weekend. I'm from Houston, Texas. They invited me. They gave me a hot pass for free with my dad. Me and my dad got hot passes. We went to Texas Motor Speedway and we had a great time. And I think it was that weekend where I realized, wow, I am part of a real NASCAR team.
That had to have been a great experience, getting those passes and getting to experience that race with your dad. You mentioned beforehand you mentioned earlier about how the change with the dynamic grip and the weather, really complemented your driving style. If you could, for a little bit, tell the listeners out there what that dynamic grip is and how that works, because iRacing has somehow found out a way to make the tires actually lay down rubber in the service.
Yeah, so they came out with that when they were making dirt. Or actually, I think it was a little bit before. They had a model which could lay down rubber, but not really grip too much. Then they started making dirt, and they realized, we can transfer this to pavement a little bit. So it's almost the same model. If you race on dirt and pavement, it's the same thing, but on dirt, obviously, it's more drastic because you're throwing piles of clay around. So on pavement, though, it really improved it. And basically when we're 40 cars on track. I think I had to say this. So there's 40 cars and they're running all on the bottom, so all the heat's going to be on the bottom. Well, if a couple cars move up the track, heats up another lane. And if more cars move up another lane, heats up the lane up there. And eventually, rubber will start to get laid down, just like it would in real life. Slide your tires, you put your wear into your line, and then eventually you can kind of develop your own line.
That's actually really cool how they've been able to do that on the service. Now, Caitlin, were you going to say something?
I was just kind of in shock that it's that advanced. That's pretty cool. I have a question now. I am kind of curious because especially since everything's been going on and they've been putting the pro invitationals on TV, we see a lot of setups, and a couple of the people we've had on the show have kind of talked about their setups at home too. So now I got to know, where are you at with because you've done this for so long and you're part of a professional team now. Did they supersize your at-home driving center? I got to know, what is your spaceship like? I mean, it's a race car, but I kind of feel like they look like spaceships.
Well, it's nothing too special. Over the years, I've added more and more. So I am racing off of an IKEA L-shaped desk. I have my wheel on it. It's a Fanatic. It's a brand from Germany. That's about as fancy as I'll get. Really fancy wheel. It's a nice 12.5-inch rim. A lot smaller than you run in real life. Those guys run about 15 to 14. I have a brake that has a load cell, kind of like your real car, but it's not too close, still a little gamey, but obviously it's fancier. And then I am on a gamer racing chair with wheels on it. On carpet, though. It doesn't move. So, and then I have an H pattern that maybe you can hear it.
Yeah, there it goes.
So, so I have a small H pattern joystick. It's called a Thrustmaster TH8. And then it's basically a computer desk. I have 3 screens. I used to have 1, and then I was like, wait, what if I get 2 more? And then now I can see a lot more. So it's a lot more like use your peripheral vision of a racer. So that's what I like about it, and that's why I got it. But other than that, nothing too fancy. My boss, Austin Dillon, obviously the invitational stuff, he's been getting on more and more, and his setup's way fancier than mine. And I'm kind of jealous to see his, and it kind of makes me want to upgrade, as you said.
So now we got about 2 minutes before we go to break here, so we want to always leave on a high note here in this COVID-19 situation. We've now been on red flag for about a month. Before we let people go, we've been asking them this question now about a specific item that has kind of disappeared since this whole thing has gone down. And for this, I'm going to hand it over to Caitlin. So, Caitlin, take it away.
Yeah, so I need to know before we walk out, like you said, when everything really settled in, before we got the shelters in place, but right after everything kind of started to actually hit the wire here, toilet paper started going off the shelves everywhere. So I got to know, do you have enough toilet paper?
I believe I do. I'm the only one that uses my bathroom, and I think there's 7 rolls in there still. So
hey!
I don't think that will be being used up at all, since it's like half guest bathroom too, and obviously there's no guest, so I think I'm good.
Blake Reynolds _66. That's where he is on Twitter. Thank you so much to Coca-Cola for helping get him to the track, and Team Dillon as well. You can check out those races every other Tuesday at 9 p.m. Head over to enascar.com for more information about all of the electronic NASCAR series out there. Well, Blake, this has been an amazing conversation. We have got to have you back on later on in your season, and I hope you have a great evening, and we will catch you next time.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So we will be right back after this. When we come back, we're going to have Bill Lester on the line, and we're going to get into an important conversation about race and racing. We'll be right back after this on The Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey USRN fans, do you have a product or company you're trying to promote? Look no further. USRN is teaming up with small local businesses trying to establish themselves via online promotion. Let us know if you're interested. Email us at usrnradio@gmail.com to learn more. Hi everybody, it's Calvin here from USRN, here to give you an important message. Since 2017, we have done our absolute best to provide you with nothing but the highest quality of sports calls in the greatest of quantity possible. Thanks to you, our station has grown more than we ever thought. That's why, with your help, we would like to grow even further. Just think, twice the amount of your favorite calls, 24 hours of coverage, talk shows, play-by-play, game-by-game analysis, and so much more. That's right, USRN2 is officially in development, but we can't do it alone. We have set up a GoFundMe page that you can access from our homepage on the left of your screen. We also are planning special giveaways and prizes to our highest donors. Our goal here at USRN is to bring you the best calls possible at no cost to you. In order to continue to do that, we need your help now. Please check out our GoFundMe page, and if you would like to know how you can help, you can email usrnradio@gmail.com. Without your support, we couldn't do what we do.
From the home plate to the nets, the end zone to the finish line, here nothing is off limits and no sport is safe. Not what it seems with your host Caitlin Seam, bringing you sports like you've never heard before. Catch me Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, right here on IE Sports Radio. The only question is, are you ready?
Okay.
You guys are not going to be ready for what Caitlin does on that program every week, giving you sports her way on Not What It Seems every Thursday at 5 o'clock right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And we are back here on the Extra Mile with Darryl, Michael, and Caitlin, and we are into our main event of the evening. This week, a troubling stereotype was brought back into the consciousness of NASCAR with the Kyle Larson incident. But unlike most incidents, the retribution there was swift and brutal. Within 2 days of Kyle Larson making that mistake, he lost his ride, several sponsors dropped out, and now he is on his road to get back. A lot of people have been trying to figure out, will Kyle Larson be back next year? Will he be back into a car at all in the highest level of American motorsports? And what this incident meant for race relations with NASCAR and the African American community. To help us with this conversation, I reached out to Grand Am Rolex Series and NASCAR veteran Bill Lester, who agreed to join us for this conversation. Bill is on the line right now. Bill, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And the first question I want to ask, we talked about it earlier between the three of us. Where were you when you first heard about what happened with Kyle Larson, and what was your direct or your first reaction to it?
So I first got wind of it on social media the day after. I understand it took place on Sunday night, and so I was just perusing on Monday and saw it, and I was like, wow. And so I saw the video of the incident and was just utterly shocked. I mean, just fact that he was so cavalier with his statement, like it was a regular everyday occurrence, was just took me aback. And so I got on Twitter and expressed my thoughts about it, which was really just sheer disappointment. For somebody who was a product of NASCAR's Drive for Diversity, as somebody who has Japanese heritage as well as American, I really think he should know better. He's not a young teenager. He's a grown man with a family. And for him to use that sort of language was just disappointing is the best way that I can characterize it.
I think for me, myself personally, I've watched that Drive for Diversity program and tried to keep an eye on the drivers coming through that program ever since they announced it. And to see the first one to get there be Kyle Larson, I was so happy for that program, because that means that there's going to be a continuation of it, because people are now seeing the positives of it, where drivers from different backgrounds getting a chance to get to the Cup Series. And I think for me personally, for Kyle to be, as you said, the champion of the D4D program, and to make that, I'm not going to call it a mistake, to make the choice to say what he said, it really infuriated me, because he should have known better. And I think my co-hosts, as I welcome Caitlin Michael back in, they felt the same way.
Yeah, I just don't see how you can really feel any other way. However, having said that, I'm very much aware of how the majority NASCAR base feels about it, and they're not in agreement. They are, I mean, this has been a very polarizing scenario where a lot of the traditional NASCAR fans are up in arms because they've heard the word before and they think it's just regular vernacular, but it's not. And that word has consequences, and it is demeaning and hurtful to the African American community. And, if we are all Americans and trying to come together, we have to respect each other. And that was a sign of disrespect.
What do you say to yourself when you see all those people that immediately jump to his defense, and the first thing they went to, I think 80% of the time, was, well, the XYZ rapper says it in their song, so why can't I say it, and other things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, it's really sad that they think that even though they've heard it, that they have a license to use it. They do not. They do not understand or have, gone through the black experience. I do not approve of the word, and think that it is like I said, hurtful, demeaning term. And, they say, okay, well, you guys use it, that sort of thing. True. I do not believe that or agree with the fact that it is being used in rap music and, in some inner city circles and such. But despite all that, they have no license. It is not something that they can do. Mm-hmm. And I challenge anybody to go in the inner city and call somebody of black origin one and think they can get out alive. That just is not going to fly. So, some people say it's a double standard. Well, you know what? Maybe it is a double standard in some respects. There are a lot in the black community, a lot of people that typically of, lower economic existence and do not, typically speak with a lot of respect amongst each other that use that term. And it's tragic. It's unfortunate. It's not going to change overnight. But in no means, in no time should somebody other than a black person ever use that word. And I am not giving license for black people to use it.
Mm-hmm. So, Bill, as we sit here, NASCAR finds itself in a situation where, once again, it has to confront this ugly stereotype that its fans are nothing but deep South, uneducated rednecks, because of what's happened with Kyle Larson. And the sport, to its credit, has made great strides in multiple areas with the officials, with pit crews, to try and get more African Americans and other minorities into the sport. how does something like this hurt the strides they have made, and what is NASCAR's path to putting this behind them and getting back to building a stronger fan base within the African American community for their sport?
Holy cow. You asked me about 12 questions. But, this has been a setback. There's no two ways about it. A huge setback, especially if they want diversity and inclusion, which they have indicated that they do. NASCAR is privately held. They are under no obligation to create the Drive for Diversity program. To their credit, they have. And you can see that there has been some strides, definite strides that have been made. Kyle Larson, Bubba Wallace being two of the most, visible. But beyond, crew members and officials and such, they've done things like create a summer internship program where they are gotten people of diverse backgrounds in front office as well, in the legal department, in the marketing department, et cetera and so on. They have done a lot to diversify their sport. But this situation with Kyle is a black eye. And it's just, again, I keep using the word disappointing, but that's the only way I can characterize it. How do they get back from this? Wow. It's not going to happen overnight, I can tell you that. I'll be interested to see if NASCAR puts forth any further, publication or, indication that they're going to do certain specific things. I don't know what NASCAR's plan is. I can't speak for NASCAR. In that respect, I have to stay in my lane. I don't know what they're planning to do, but I bet you that they are convening, trying to determine what they're going to do for damage control. Because at this point, as far as the African American community is concerned, this is almost like just bringing the Confederate flag right back out into the open. So I think it's a tragic situation. I wish it didn't occur. I know Kyle himself wishes it didn't occur. He may not ever even come back to NASCAR. And I said this before. He may not care about coming back to NASCAR. He went on the record saying that his Chili Bowl victory in the early part of this year was his biggest victory ever. Despite the 7 or so NASCAR Cup victories he's had, he puts the Chili Bowl as his top racing victory. So, and I saw that the World of Outlaws has already said that they are accepting him or welcoming him back with open arms. So he may just take, his marbles and just go play over there. I mean, he's got, I believe, a World of Outlaws team, and he could be just, fat, dumb, and happy, so to speak, just going back over there and playing in the dirt. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the path he takes.
I read your comments in Auto Week. They interviewed you about this situation. You said that Kyle, if he gets back, would almost be a pariah in the sport. Do you think his comments about the Chili Bowl victory, coupled with what just happened here, kind of puts him in a situation where he might get blackballed from the sport at this point?
That could very easily be the case. I just don't know. I think that the other drivers are going to pretty much keep an arm's length approach from him for a while, if he does come back. But it's a matter of if he even desires to come back. I just don't know. He was on, effectively, his way out of Chip Ganassi Racing. And so he was going to be one of the hottest free agents out there. But it's not as if he has to come back to NASCAR. And whether he does or not, only time will tell. I just hope that he's learned a lesson about thinking before you act. One of the things that I always did when I was on the circuit was choose my words very carefully and think about, what the effect of them will have, because you can't take them back. Once they're out there, that's it. And so, he just was very candid and cavalier, I should say, about how he expressed himself that evening. And, he couldn't have made a bigger misstep.
Well, I think, too, and I think one of the things that shocked me the most is, he really acted like such an ignorant child, where the terrible thing is he has children. So you're like, this is you're a father and this is how you're going to behave? And I feel like maybe he just doesn't realize it or doesn't care, but I think one of the shocking things, yes, and you're an athlete and you're in this spotlight, but we all know that you're a father as well. And like, to me, it's, as you've said before, it's disappointing, but also to me, it's so shameful. I could not imagine, unless she is a very different woman, but I could not imagine being his wife right now. And just how shameful I would feel to my husband and the father of my children. No.
Yeah.
It's not going to fly on my end for sure. I wouldn't think she'd be that way, but I could not imagine having to go through that as a family.
Yeah, it would definitely be something that's going to be very difficult for him. I don't know anything about his upbringing and that sort of thing, so I can't speak to what he was exposed to or, how he thinks or anything like that. But, he just was not thinking. And it's just amazing to me that he thought that, I don't know if he thought at all, but just the fact that it just rolled off his tongue like it was no big deal. Like he was just, everyday conversation. I was like, wow. So, yeah, I do not believe that he shouldn't have a second chance. I think that he is remorseful. I don't think this should end his career per se, but I really believe that he is going to have to be very careful in earning back respect, because right now he doesn't have a whole lot.
We saw Bubba Wallace came out and made a statement about this. There can be questions about whether or not he needed to, but as the only current African-American driver, it almost falls upon him to make a statement. A lot of people are characterizing it as the, first little olive branch to bring Kyle Larson back. My question to you would be, if Bubba did reach out to you to ask, how does he navigate this situation where he's almost the voice of the African-American community in NASCAR, what would you tell him?
Well, I would just tell him to, be true to himself. Don't be anybody who you're not. And speak from, your heart, your experience. And know that you are the person that is first and foremost on the scene right now. And everybody's watching, everybody's listening. There are a lot of people out there waiting for you to make a misstep, to make a mistake, so they can jump all over you. There's a large faction of folks that don't want the sport to change. And so he is going to always be under a microscope, like I was when I had, my career in NASCAR. I always knew that I was, in the spotlight. I always knew that I was sought after in terms of, anything that had to do with color. Bill, what do you think of this in terms of, the black community? What do you think of that in terms of blah, 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 this, that, and the other, and so forth, and so on. So he's going to get all that. That comes with the territory, and I know he understands that. But at the same time, you have to hold yourself, at the highest level in terms of honesty and integrity and being true to who you are, but also realizing that you do basically represent your race and your sport. So, do it with integrity and honor.
Well, Bill, I will say that you've got two fans here, and candidly, myself and Michael, that have been rooting for you your entire career. And I don't think there was a prouder moment for me than when you were in the qualifying session at Atlanta, back when you ran the waste management car, and you got that car in the field. I think I was the happiest I've ever been watching a race. And just thank you for coming today, and just thank you for being in the sport and making a way for African Americans, and just being there for those of us that look like you and I have someone to root for. Really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Well, that's very heartfelt and well received. I thank you for that compliment. It was definitely something qualifying in that show in Atlanta in 2006. That was definitely a high watermark for me because I knew how much pressure was on me, but nobody put more pressure on me than myself. It was something I felt I was born to do. And, when you achieve something like that, it will be something that I'm always, looking back on with pride. But thank you for that.
You're welcome. And what are you up to nowadays? And do you think we'll ever see Bill Lester back behind the wheel of a car?
I think that ship has sailed. I'm 59 years old now, and while I'm in still pretty darn good shape, I would think anybody who saw me or went out there and played golf with me or whatever can attest. I could probably still, to the most part, get it done, but you never know, right? I mean, the phrase goes. What is the phrase go? The phrase goes, the older I am, the faster I was, right? So who knows what it would be like if I actually got behind the wheel. But no, my priorities and my focus has changed. Both of my sons are teenagers, one's 17, the other's 14. So, what's interesting to me and what's important to me and what I take pride and joy and excitement in is not me, but, my family. And so in answer to the question, what it is I'm doing now is I am writing and hopefully going to be publishing soon here a motivational memoir, which uses my experiences in motorsports as the basis for it being a motivational memoir in terms of overcoming obstacles and living your dream and all that sort of thing, but using my experience in motorsports and the naysayers and the, folks that didn't think that I could do it and the overcoming adversity and all that sort of thing and how that was overcome, encapsulating it in about 8 tips for success in terms of how you too can live your best life. So the plan is hopefully to have it published early next year for distribution, maybe around the Black History Month time frame. So it's going to be a little while still, but it's being worked on, it's being polished, and I'm looking forward to having it out there so people can enjoy it.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that book. Bill, thank you so much for joining us this evening as we are about to say goodbye. We have to do this again in better circumstances, obviously, but please, we will be in touch, and we will love to have you again.
Well, I'd be happy and pleased to come back on and share some thoughts. So thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. That's at Bill_Lester on Twitter. Bill Lester here, a guest on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Bill, thank you so much. We will catch you next time.
Thank you all.
You're
Have
welcome.
a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So that will about do it for this episode of the Extra Mile. That was a wonderful conversation we just had with Bill Lester on everything that is the Kyle Larson situation, and he was in that spot where Bubba is now, where he was really that black voice for motorsports, and thankfully nothing like this happened, but there was a lot of good information we just received there, and if Kyle wants it, he's going to have to work hard, he said. But before we go, I do want to get your guys' answer to what Bill said. He doesn't really think that, from what it sounded like, his question was more of if Kyle really wants to come back to Cup. Do you think Kyle will come to Cup or try to come back to Cup, or is he just going to go do the dirt thing and just hang out there and just chalk up the Cup Series as a lost cause?
I mean, I think Bill did make an excellent point in saying that, in some of the ways he acted and has presented himself, that it could very well be I got my money's worth and it's not worth it. Because if you think about it, if the people over in World of Outlaws, or even just the fans in general, are all accepting you and taking you back in, even with all of this going on, would you rather go in the path of least resistance after this, or would you want to bust your ass night and day to try to redeem your image from something that you did, because it's not going to be an easy road. And everybody's like, well, he could be back next year. What if he can't? What if nobody wants to touch him what if it's 5 years from now? I mean, if you look at it, you know, we handle adultery in a different way, but when Tiger Woods it took him years to get back. Years. On top of his injury, but really before he was actually accepted in any kind of fan base, as any kind of public athlete, it was years later when his whole thing arose. So people are like, well, there's a chance he could come back next year. Well, what if he can't? What if what he's done has burnt so many bridges that he has to put in all of this effort to build them over years? In everything that he is presenting himself with now, in how he acted in his video, I just don't know if Kyle Larson has it in him to build that type of redemption story. Especially when you have another community that makes you money, and, at least, he's going to be settled enough that, yes, he doesn't make as much winning World of Outlaws as you even get in last place in NASCAR, but he has all these millions of dollars that he's already gained over the years. As long as he's, at least saved some of it wisely, he really doesn't need it anymore. Oh, excuse me. If we can live on $35,000, he can make it on $3 million. I'm pretty sure he'll be okay. So I don't know. I would be shocked if he busted his ass to come back. I'm just not expecting it. I don't think he has it. Seeing what I've seen, I don't know if Kyle Larson has it in him to build a redemption story.
Michael, what do you think?
To be honest with you, I'm thinking he'll probably be happy being in World of Outlaws. I think he's just going to do what he wants for a while. And if he really enjoys it, that's probably where he's going to be. And there might be other racing series that might take him in after all this is over. So I think he'll be fine. He can, like Caitlin says, we survive on $3,500. I think that's what you said, and he has $3 million, so he'll be fine. And like I said, he'll probably find something else to do while he's away from NASCAR, something else that'll be enjoyable for him. So I don't think it'll be too much of an impact for him. I'm sure he doesn't like his image being thrown around in a negative light, though. But, he said what he said, and he just has to keep carrying on if he wants to.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, as we said, and as Bill said, let me take the words out of Bill's mouth. I think as we said at the beginning of the show, he did it to himself, and now he has to suffer the consequences himself, and it's going to be a long road back if he decides to come back. If NASCAR teams want him to come back, if sponsors are going to want to get in contact with him again, excuse me, there are a lot of ifs more than whens when it comes for Kyle Larson, and whether or not he's going to get back to NASCAR. But I will say this: whoever gets that 42 just got one heck of a ride for when we go back racing.
And a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And I think the leader in that clubhouse would be Ross Chastain, as Chip basically said he owes him for how the DC Solar thing went down, and Ross was extremely diplomatic during that whole thing, and we thought he would get to Cup. We just did not think it would be like this at all. But we will keep you updated on this situation as it goes forward. And the last thing I will say before we get to one topic I wanted to get to from the beginning and then say goodnight, he picked the wrong time to have this mistake. because there's nothing else going on in the world right now. It's COVID-19 for journalists. It's COVID-19 stories and whatever else there is to talk about. This came up. It was on NBC News at 9 in the morning on Monday. It happened at like 10 o'clock at night, 9 in the morning on Monday. It's on national news. Like, he picked the wrong time to have this slip up.
Yeah, you can't. You gotta be careful what you say out there now, because everybody's looking for the next biggest thing to talk about. Because, like you said, on the radio, it's just COVID-19 stuff. So,
but also
bad timing.
Good.
Yeah,
I'm glad it was bad timing. I'm glad this couldn't get pushed under the rug, because it's been pushed under the rug before, and things are so unsettling right now in this country, specifically outside of even COVID, that I'm glad it happened when there was time to focus on it, to actually see the severity of what he did without somebody laughing it off or shrugging it off or just pushing it under the rug. I'm glad he got caught like that. Karma's a bitch. And it finally bit him. And good. I'm glad that the world could see it, because it needs to be saw, and people need to know it's bad. And I know that there's all of these ignorant people in this world who are jumping to his defense, and they're saying it's okay or not seeing something wrong with it. But now you look stupid. Mm-hmm. You're saying this, but literally NASCAR, your precious NASCAR, dropped him first. Before anything else happened, they were like, oh, no. So you can be as loud as you want, Mr. Anonymous, on your Twitter handle. But at the end of the day, it's finally coming to show that it's not okay. Mm-hmm. And it's going to come around. And so I'm glad. It did come at a bad time for him, but I'm glad it did, because it needed to happen this way.
And before we say goodbye, I need to make this extremely clear one more time before we go by. There is no African American that sits in a grandstand and watches cars go by that owes you a pass on any of this. Just because they are there does not mean that they agree with any of your ideology or anything that you think. The only thing we are there for is because we like cars going fast as much as y'all do. But do not think for a second to look at that African American that's in those grandstands and try to use that person as your one black friend to get away with whatever stupid, racially insensitive crap you want to spread around, because you will get corrected immediately. You're not going to like it, and that person is not going to care whether or not you don't talk to them before, because you showed your behind to them and showed your true colors, and that person will move accordingly going forward. And if you think I was talking about you, maybe I was, but that's a story for another day. Because we had a great show tonight here on the Extra Mile. I want to thank Bill Lester. I want to thank Blake Reynolds for coming on. I want to thank Caitlin and Michael for being here. I want to thank you, the audience, for being such great people and joining us for every week of the COVID Red Flag. We're not done yet here on the Extra Mile. Coming up at the top of the hour, Bases Loaded is here for all of your MLB news. And unfortunately, the Midsummer Classic, guys, there's rumors it's not going to be happening. They'll have more information for you on the other side. Hopefully, you will get an All-Star game, but we'll see. Before we go, if you want to get in touch with us, Michael is at Stargazer_FX. Caitlin is at Caitlin Seam and at Seam Radio. I'm at DK Jr. 12 and the Extra Mile IE1. Make sure you keep it locked here for all of your Extra Mile, or all your Extra Mile and all IE Sports Radio programs. And if you miss any live show, you can check it out right here on the show reel, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, and other places where podcasts can be heard. Check out the IE Sports Radio website, where you can get involved in the conversation on the forum, read the blog, find out information about all of the IE Sports Radio hosts, listen to past episodes, and more. And remember, keep it locked to all of the social media pages for IE Sports Radio at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Next week, Cullen Kaminsky is joining the program. He is a racer in the Mazda Road to Indy program, and he also plays goalie in college, in college hockey. That's going to be a great conversation. I know Caitlin, she's from Michigan. She's going to love that conversation as well.
Hockey!
I told y'all. So cannot wait next week, as it has obviously been a NASCAR-heavy program. We're showing the open-wheel family some love here the next couple of weeks. Got another hot guest after that, but you'll have to listen next week to find out about that. But our time is out, so it is time for us to get on. The COVID red flag continues, but soon it will be lifted. The yellow flag will come out. The cars will pace around. The green, and then the pace car will pull in. The cars will pull into the restart zone, and we will be green flag once again on your favorite racetrack and life as well. For Caitlin
Darryl,
and Michael, yes.
I just need to add really quick that I feel like I just experienced how you'll tell your children about the birds and the bees. It'll be with pace cars and green flags.
You know what? After the seriousness of the last 30 minutes, we all needed that laugh.
I'm sorry. I had to. I've been so good.
Needed that one. I'm not gonna lie.
Talking about the pace car pulling off, and I was just like, "Oh man, what Daddy Darryl's gonna sound like someday."
Probably. That's our time. This has been the Extra Mile. We have been us. You have been you. We will see you guys next week. I would say for the next green flag, but there is not a green flag next week. So we will see you next week as we continue the COVID red flag. We won't be right back. See you guys next time.